your core values, and your extraordinary approach. That's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you unique. That's just pizzazz, your spices, your seasonings. That's what makes you special.
Being in this entrepreneurial world, the way that it is right now, it can be very dense and it can be very heavy. And a lot of us have been presented with this box. Like, if I don't post 5 times a day on Instagram, I'm going to die. And it's not
No,
the case, but it thinks that.
even if it's a little scary for me to show myself, I'd rather do that and go to bed at night and wake up and feel good about myself every day without sacrificing my integrity or doing
Mhm.
something that feels inauthentic. I'd rather do that and be that person than to look on the other side and say,
Welcome to Mindfully Sovereign, the podcast that invites you to reclaim your feminine self-authority and unleash the abundance within. My name is Sapha, I am your host, and I'm here to help guide you past your limiting beliefs and into the heart of your unwavering and undeniable power. This podcast is all about reclaiming your feminine self-authority, learning the art of self-seduction, and awakening your inner goddess so that you can become an aligned match to your most abundant life yet. So grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and get ready to become mindfully sovereign.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. Happy Monday. And I am so very excited to share sacred space with one of my favorite people today. So I'm going to let her introduce herself because I don't know, my guests do a better job of introducing themselves, I think, that sometimes I do. So, Lindsay, if you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and we can get started.
yeah. So, hello to those listening. My name is Lindsay. I go by Content Coach Lindsay on Instagram, and I would consider myself an unconventional, intuitive lead generation specialist and also marketing coach. And I hate calling myself a marketing coach because I'm like, oh, it's so cringe. Some of the things I see in the marketing world and the things that are being pushed. But yes, that's what I would describe myself as, more of the intuitive person who leans into you and customize strategies for you. So I highly focus on serving coaches, consultants, service providers, course creators, all my digital course creators out there. I didn't leave you out. And the beautiful thing about it is I've had an amazing opportunity to serve these people by helping them to attract empowered buyers. And I made up this phrase to describe that decisive action taker who's already actively looking for you, which makes selling so much easier because now you're not convincing and pushing and having to do all these sleazy tactics. It's just, it comes so naturally. It flows better. You're attracting these amazing people to you and you're being authentically yourself. And we do that through two main things. So I focus on your core values and your extraordinary approach. That's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you unique. That's just pizzazz, your spices, your seasonings. That's what makes you special. And so I like to highlight that through our strategy. So that way you're not feeling like you're not being yourself or you're not fully authentic and you're taking someone else's strategy.
Oh my goddess. Okay. First of all, I'm like getting ready to jump up and down with excitement here. But I love this. And the realm, I think that was one of the reasons why I reached out to you, one of. So I'll touch on all of these points as we go through this conversation. But one of the reasons is in our world, in the entrepreneurial world, especially for those of us who are very soul led, who want to be of service and who very much have this desire to see every woman empowered in their own way and just awakened and alivened and just to see this world a better place. I think for us, sometimes being in this entrepreneurial world, the way that it is right now, it can be very dense and it can be very heavy. And a lot of us have been presented with this box that we have to fit into. And it's like, if you think outside of this, or if you want to step one toe out of that, you're basically being told you're going to fail. It's not going to work. It's going to be terrible. And for someone like you, who's there to support entrepreneurs get there. I love this because essentially that's what I do with my clients as well. I don't do a step by step. This is my list. This is what I learned in life coaching school or whatever. It's like, I don't do that. I go by what their person, basically what their spirit tells me, by what their energy tells me, by what their words are telling me, their subconscious, I can watch very clearly. And you do much the same, but in a business sense. So that's one of the reasons I wanted you to come on the show. And I love that. And the other thing is, and I want us to get into this discussion, is this space where we can get very comfortable being who we are, despite whatever wounds might be aggravated along the way, whatever stories might have been presented to us from the outside world looking in, especially in terms of marketing, right? So, what would be your key advice for someone who is in this entrepreneurial service, but like soulful service space, who is wanting to express themselves, but feels this like clutch of, well, I was told by a marketer once that if I don't, blah, 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 then I can't.
Yes, my advice really is, you have to be selective, number one, before you hire any type of coach. And I've learned this the hard way, but many of my clients come to me, some of them healers, therapists, I've worked with them in the past and they've heard, oh, I have to do it this way and I don't really want to. And I ask them, I'm like, what are you comfortable with? So whenever I work with anyone, so my advice is ask yourself a few questions first. Number one, what fears are coming up for me? Let's take the fear out of the fear, you know, connect with the fear, befriend the fear a little bit and say, well, you know what? I'm afraid. Why am I afraid? Where's that coming from? What's the root behind that? And 9 times out of 10, it's because of something else we heard from someone else. And so when we adopt those stories, as you were mentioning, as our own, it's easy for that fear to just come up to the surface and bubble over and say, oh my goodness, but if I do it this way, I might fail. Well, worst case scenario, is there really any failure or is it a teacher? Is it a lesson? Are you showing up fully and authentically as yourself? Are you listening to your own voice, your inner voice, or is your inner critic kind of taking the lead there? And I want to encourage people to be neutral. View your thoughts as neutral. Someone I worked with who's a licensed psychotherapist, she actually calls it mind neutrality. So you're not viewing your thoughts as like, oh, these are so evil or, oh, this is so good. No, you're just listening. You're hearing yourself. You're seeing yourself. You're allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel in that moment and say, okay, well, this is where I'm at. Why am I here? Just getting to the root of why do I feel this way is going to help you connect better with self. You have to
Mhm.
connect with yourself first before you put anything out there in the atmosphere. Check your own energy. How are you feeling? Are you a little scared? Are you nervous? Why? What's coming up? What's bubbling to the surface? And embrace that and say, okay, this is real for me. This is how I'm
Yeah.
really, truly feeling. You know what? No matter what happens, I've got to do this in a way that aligns and that feels really good to me. Even if it's a little scary for me to show myself, I'd rather do that and go to bed at night and wake up and feel good about myself every day without sacrificing my integrity or doing
Mhm.
something that feels inauthentic. I'd rather do that and be that person than to look on the other side and say, that doesn't feel right. This is really uncomfortable. And this is not who I am, but I'm just doing it to kind of go with what everyone else tells me to do. So think about that, how you want to feel at the end of it.
Mhm. No, I 100% have so many things. So for me, this is the realm of what I've termed self-seduction, right? This is the work that really alivens us and our souls and our spirits. For me, it's this conversation of you want to fall madly in love with yourself. And I mean really madly in love with yourself beyond people that, if you've been in my podcast for a while, you've heard me say this before, but like go beyond the realm of self acceptance, go beyond what we've been sold as self love, which a lot of the times is qualifiers. I love myself because my body is strong. I love myself because I can, do math really quickly. I love myself. And we put qualifiers in things. These conversations that we are talking about, this is the realm of really falling in love with yourself by getting to know yourself. And so getting to know yourself asks that we come from a place of non-judgmental observance. You have to get really curious and be willing to sit with what shows up. Because here's the tricky thing about the ego. And this is why, and you and I have talked about this before privately, but like this is why I love working with other people, because your ego will do everything in its power to protect you. Ego, I think, sometimes gets thrown out there as a word that has been tied or tethered to self um aggrandizing. I don't want to use the N word because I think that word gets utilized too much, but I think it gets tied to self aggrandizing or selfishness or thinking too much of the self. However, your ego is there as a protector and it likes to tell narratives, and it'll actually look for evidence that is going to be like, see, I told you that if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And so being able to take that place of neutrality, like you were describing, I love that word, that very aware, curious, but non-judgmental ask of self is going to help so much. It's going to open up the doors for more creativity, more understanding, more self healing that you could possibly imagine. And again, this is where sometimes we need someone to reflect that back to us, because that ego is going to fight tooth and nail to prove that no, this is for real. Like if I don't post 5 times a day on Instagram, I'm going to die. And it's not
No.
the case, but it thinks that.
Yeah, that's real. That's real right there. I love everything you just said. Yes, go ahead.
I love that. And I want to get a little bit deeper into this because both of us have been in spaces before. We've just happened to have shared a space before where the world that we were walking into, where we were needing support, where we were wanting to be coached and not necessarily mentored, but actually coached, trained up, taught how to do something, ended up feeling very hurtful and sharp and pain. And so, what I want for us to talk a little bit about is what are the best ways for us to support ourselves when we find ourselves second guessing based off of what someone else's experience of us is. In other words, what if I've heard from 5 different business coaches and all of them tell me that, oh, I'll use myself as an example. All of they tell me that I'm too verbose, I'm too loquacious, people are never going to understand this, I'm too intelligent, my message is like too verby, it's too much, right? So from your perspective, what is the best way to show up for self when we are in that environment?
Yeah, I think, you have to be you. At the end of the day, whatever that is, if people don't understand you or connect with you, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Transform and change into the
Mhm.
chameleon that falls back into people pleasing. So, yes, there are ways to make our messages clear, so that we connect with people emotionally and spiritually, but that's an energetic thing, right? So,
Mhm.
even if the person doesn't understand, you want the inquisitive person, the inquisitive buyer who asks questions and says, well, what does this mean? I'm curious. And I'm sure you break things down. I'm sure you're not just sitting here in woo woo land. So it's like you have to know who you are and what you bring to the table and fully embrace that and say, okay, maybe that coach didn't understand me, but that doesn't reflect on me, that reflects on them. So
Mhm.
don't carry that weight that this coach or multiple coaches might have told you about yourself, because they're speaking through their own lens, and most people are projecting their own perceptions and making it a reality based on their world. And they're saying it's my world, you're just living in it. And that's just not true. We're all taking up space in this world, and our differences are actually what make us beautiful and what make us so unique and incredible and amazing and phenomenal. And you have to stand in that. So I would highly recommend that you take a grounding technique. I do this every day, if not every day, almost every day. And when I skip a day, I do feel the difference. So I'll look in the mirror and I literally say, today I'm letting go of this. I'm releasing this, letting go of blank. What is it you want to let go of? I'm surrendering people pleasing, if that's what you're struggling with in the moment. A lack of confidence. I'm letting go of this. I'm letting go of criticism. I'm releasing that. And guess what? Now you get to invite in what it is you want to keep for the day.
Mhm.
Today I'm embracing
Mhm.
joy and peace and excitement and my inner badass, my confidence, you get to take that with you for the day. You don't have to accept what someone else said. So you have to speak life into your situation before you feel it, because your feelings catch up later. A lot of times our body catches up with our mind a lot later. But the more you do that and repeat it, repetition, repetition, you're like, wait a minute, I'm starting to believe it. I'm amazing. Wait a minute. Your opinion, screw that. I know who I am. So you just have to really sit with that and do that as often as you need to. Remind yourself of who the hell you are, because sometimes we tend to forget that our unique
Mhm.
gifts and talents and abilities and things that we actually hold, it's bubbling over because we're so passionate about it, but then we feel restricted. Whenever you feel restricted, it's time to double down. Time to double down and go full throttle. Even if you're like, oh, I don't know how it'll be responded to. Let me throw my phone, whatever. Okay, you did it. You got it out there. It's better to do that than to just be like, well, I don't want to say it because someone might get offended or not understand, or it's better to just go for it. Go for it
Mhm.
in alignment with who you are.
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying not to like clap or scream because obviously podcast form. I mean, the YouTube, you guys can see this, but like on the podcast, it's, if I do that, everybody will kill me. No, I love this. And I think it's important for us to remember the times in our lives when we feel like we have completely forgotten who we are. A lot of times, what's at play is that we've allowed ourselves to pour so much out of us, so much, and to put ourselves so far down the ladder, so like dead last, that we start missing the pieces that allow us to connect to our desires, to our perception of life, to our thirst for like to our essence basically. So it's important for us to definitely drop in. I love the grounded practices that you were talking about. I love that conversation with self. It is that, and I think it's important to say it's not about glossing over, or the one thing that I always laugh about is that when people start working with me, a lot of times I think they have an expectation that because I do energetic work, we're going to do a lot of journaling and a lot of affirmations. And I don't do affirmations at all, almost, if I can help it. And one of the reasons for that is I'm such a firm believer that what it is that you are experiencing has a voice that is valid to listen to. Meaning, if you feel completely disconnected from yourself, it's worth listening to that part. It's worth allowing yourself to be in that emotion and then to choose better for yourself. So it's, for me, it's all about choice. It's about going, okay, right at this moment, I feel very disempowered, or I feel, and again, it's that difference between the statement of I am, which is like my identifier, right? As in like, this is the human being or the existence that I am, versus I feel. Emotions, like you said, they move really quick. And so it's the second you allow yourself to say, I feel this right now, and then pause and sit with it and be like, okay, where is this coming from? Again, that's self seduction. And then taking it a step further and saying, I'm choosing something. Because also, here's the thing, if you want to choose to be in your feels and just stay there for a little bit longer, there is nothing wrong with that. And I will never fault you for that. There is going to come a time when you're going to get tired of doing that. Like I used to say for people who came to me for nutritional advice all of the time, you think that if you have a bucket of ice cream in your house, you're not going to be able to control yourself and you're going to eat it all day, every day, and it's going to be the worst day of your life. But I know for a fact that you are going to get tired. You are going to get to a point where you're like, oh, one or two scoops, and that was it. That's kind of all I needed, when you start listening to yourself. But that's the missing piece. It's not just, oh, this just happens because that's how life is. It's this happens because you listened to yourself. And then from listening to yourself, you can heal. And so in this regard, it's the same thing. It's the same realm. And for those of us who do this work, showing up as who we are, because it is so paramount and it is so needed, it is important that we recognize that there is no wrong way for us to show up. And another thing that you touched on that I just want to spend a quick moment on is this idea of failure. I'm very known for relishing in what I consider sacred discomfort, meaning this concept is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. Me saying failure is something you should welcome into your life is going to make a lot of people bristle. A lot of people don't even like to use the word failure at all. They've like exit from their vocabulary, which I'm down for, because that's what I've done with acceptance. Like I try to not use acceptance at all whatsoever in my life. So I get it and I'm all for it, and do you. And if that's energetically what works best for you and that's it's good, good. And pause and consider, what if failure was just this opportunity to deepen? What if it was just one more step in the ladder? What if it was just one more layer in the icing? What if it was just one more thing to add if you've ever done pottery? What if it was just like taking the top layer off and then building back from the bottom? A lot of times, what we're afraid of that has to do with failure, we are afraid of it because we think that the failure means that we are not enough. And the thing is, that has nothing to do with it. Your failure or success in business has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, I love what you said too, because when you sit with yourself, those parts of yourself that you're afraid to sit with, those uncomfortable conversations with self, that's where you get the realizations. That's where you get the aha moment, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm out of alignment. No wonder I feel this way. those are the uncomfortable moments, because when you sit with those really, really hard moments, which most people run away from and are like, let me fill my plate with other things and be busy, and so I don't have to think about it. No, when you sit and you process, you're now speaking to that inner leader. You're unlocking this person who's like, no, I feel safe with the uncomfortable. I'm safe right here with myself. I feel safe and present because I know that something is on the other side of this and I need to see what this is. It's like that fight or flight response. Sometimes we run because we're like, this is not, uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't like it. But the discomfort is actually where we grow. It's where we thrive. It's where we learn more about ourselves. And I love that you use that word in a non-judgmental way, because that's the key right there. Don't judge yourself for how you're feeling in that moment. Oh, I should feel. I took that out of my vocabulary. Should. Based on who? Based on whose standards, based on whose requirements, who's holding me to these standards? Only me. And maybe someone else held me there, but that's not their place. See where I'm coming from? So when you sit with those really, really uncomfortable feelings and those moments where you're just like, I really need to check in with myself. And I do these weekly check-ins with myself. I tell people, take an hour, no phone, just you sit by yourself and really process, well, how am I feeling this week? What has been going on with me? How am I? Every day I even ask myself, how am I today? Oh, sometimes it's just Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm just hungry. That's why I'm a little angry. I'm hangry, Other times it's a lot deeper. It's like, wow, that really hurt my feelings because that family member of mine said something about me that I know is not true. And you're spreading that news to other people. Not okay. Now, how am I going to process this and how am I going to deal with this situation? And I know people say, well, that's not related to business. Yes, it is. Business and personal flow like completely together. So there are times where you might feel emotional about, and I don't use that word emotional in a bad way, like it's feeling your emotions. You might feel emotional and say, well, why am I feeling this way? Lift up the covers, peel back the layers, really get to know you. Because if that bothered you, maybe you need to have a conversation with that person and say, hey, that's not okay. That's not acceptable. Speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself if something doesn't feel right. Whether that's in business, if a client is saying, well, I need to be in touch with you 24/7. Well, that's not what I do. I have boundaries. I have certain work hours in which I respond to my clients and I don't work on weekends. I made that very clear. That's in the contract, blah, blah, blah. If that's not going to work, maybe that's not the client for you. You see how like everything just flows from relationship to relationship. It's not just about business. It's about your personal as well. How are you setting boundaries for yourself? Are you still people pleasing? Are you taking those corporate work habits that you had over there and you're hustling and grinding for opportunities because you're like, oh, I got to just work more hours. Do you need to work more hours or do you need to spend an hour with yourself? Spend 2 hours, but spend a day slowly. I started slowing down to speed up, to be honest with you. Slowing down helped me to process things. I said, I love yoga. I love the yoga practice. So I do it every day. Don't miss a day because I love it that much for me to connect with my breath, tune back into myself. And if yoga's not your jam, that's cool. You can do what you want, if it's boxing, if it's whatever it is. But I like stillness. I like that moment of calm, of being able to just reflect on my emotions deeply, breathe. Trauma, we hold a lot of that in our body. So being able to release that and let go of that is like, it's been everything for my business. So I know that people tend to think that business and personal don't mix. That's the disconnect right there. Your business, that's you breathing life into it. Creation and creator, right? So you're the creator of this beautiful creation, this business, and you don't have to call it a business. Like that's what it is, but on technicality terms, but this is my creation. This is my baby. This is where I get to serve these amazing people. So see it as this is a beautiful project that I get to put my hands on. It's a beautiful opportunity. And if I feel out of alignment, there's a reason why I feel out of alignment. There's a reason why I feel uncomfortable. And maybe I need to just sit with that for a week. There was a week in my business I did nothing because I felt this happened around 2022, end of the year. And I was like, something feels weird. Like I don't feel like I'm in alignment anymore. Well, that's good because now I'm realizing that something's off and it might take me some time to process it. And some people would say, that's so lazy. You did no work in your business for a week. I was like, no, I need to really process and meditate and sit with this on why I'm feeling uncomfortable and why I keep attracting certain types of buyers to me. Maybe I want to shift. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to make a change. Maybe there's something I'm not fully authentically embracing within myself, and that's why this is happening. So you just have to process things and feel what you need to feel. Don't feel guilty about, processing your feelings, and those feelings maybe not being what everyone else connects with. Maybe someone doesn't understand you in your life, but you have to build that relationship with yourself. Like she said, fall madly in love with you and do amazing things for you. Because guess what? You're dating yourself. You're stuck with yourself for the rest of your life. That's the one
Yes.
person who's always guaranteed to be there is you. So, me building that connection and that relationship with myself changed everything for me, to be honest with you. That's how I was able to connect deeper and see this doesn't feel right to me. I don't have to do this anymore. What is it that you need to let go of? And what is it that you want to start embracing and start, connecting with more? Which one is your path? You get to decide. And if that's not it, well, you tried it and you got to see, well, that's not it. But at least I'm not doing something that I hate.
100,000%. There's something that I always say that it's ask yourself every morning, who am I and who do I refuse to be? Like
Mm,
that part is so key. And I think that sometimes I don't remember exactly what guest I was having this conversation with, but it was this season on the podcast. And I was having a conversation with something about how interesting it is that we have a tendency to relate to ourselves as other in more ways that we could possibly count. When I was teaching yoga and then when I was doing nutrition consultations, the one thing that I always laughed about in a kind way, but that I always laughed about and that I told people is like, just think about how many times you slam your elbow or your leg or your thigh or your shin on something just walking through your damn house is your house. You organize that. You know where stuff is. Like, yet you smack on stuff all the time. And part of the reason for that is because a good percent of the time, I'm not going to say a percentage because I'm not going to be super precise here, but a good percent of the time, you don't even know where you physically are in this world. And that is just on a physical level. Imagine what is going on internally when you're so disconnected from your heart, from your mind, from who you are as a person. And here's the other part about that is like you said, which is also one of my favorite things to always say, you are in a relationship with yourself for the rest of your life. Talk about happy ever after, talk about commitment for the rest of your life. You are that person because everybody else, things are going to change. People are going to come and go. Some people are going to move on to a different plane of existence. And it's fine. You get to have yourself for the rest of your life. So if you think that you are going to be the same person today that you were yesterday and the day before that, then you haven't understood it. You haven't seen the assignment for what it is. And you want to get to a place where you recognize, man, this changes in our businesses. I think it's so intriguing and so important for us to recognize this because those of us who are entrepreneurs, and this is, I really am going to globalize this a little bit more. Doesn't matter if you're a business coach, life coach, nutritionist, or heck, if you have your own practice as a physician or whatever it is that you're doing. My brother and my sister-in-law, for example, own a coffee shop here in Nashville. Same. Like if you are an entrepreneur, the thing about that is that it is an extension of you because it's coming from your heart. Like you said, it's that place of creation. When you think about it in terms of like the divine feminine energetics, this is you moving into the realm of the dark feminine, which is a whole conversation. It would take us like 5 days to get into fully, but you are moving into the dark feminine essence. And what you're doing is you're birthing, you are nurturing, you are creating, you are fine tuning, you are giving life to something that is an extension of you. However, and this is the important part, it is not you though. And I think a lot of times that is where we get lost. That is where we sometimes do too much. And we still have, like you said, we have this idea of coming from the corporate world, but also coming from how we were raised of number one, if we do enough good things or if we do enough. Like if I make enough spreadsheets, if I sit here and make enough reels, if I really bust my ass every single day, someone somewhere out there is going to give me a gold star. And to your mind, that gold star could be getting clients, that could be getting money, whatever, but you are expecting that gold star to come just by virtue of you doing things. And the thing is, it's not about the doing, it's about the being of what it is that you are experiencing in your life. And also the second part of that is that we keep expecting for things to be just so all of the time. They have to tick the boxes. They have to fit this mold because we were brought up in a world where this was how it was. You went to school, you sat there, you got the gold star for the work that you did, even if you never remembered or really fully embodied the teaching, right? Like, how many of us actually remember algebra? Like, how many of us actually remember a lot of things? So it's like, when you move into that realm in your business, it makes a difference because you no longer attach your value and your self-worth, your sense of self, your personal identity to your business. And that distinction, that's where we get into the realm of personal sovereignty. So when I say, like, lead yourself, like, lead from a place of personal sovereignty, be the queen in your life, be the one that is going to be the empress, be the one that is going to be the one that wears the crown, because you're the one. Hey, guess what? You're the general of your own army. You are the one that you're the president. You're all of the things that would be that hierarchy. If your mind structures hierarchically. Oh my God, that's not even a word. I can't say it, but
It is a word now, okay?
but if you structure it that way, then you want to think of yourself at the top of the chain. And the thing is, we don't. We think we're at the bottom. And then we expect from the bottom up to build things. And in the world of business, this is also another sticking point, which is where we lose ourselves as well, because we think, hey, I launched this program, it didn't sell. That means I'm a terrible person. That means there's something wrong with me. It means I'm insufficient. It means I'm not doing enough marketing. It means I'm not doing enough. And listen, no, because one of the things that you said, Lindsay, that I love, which is very true, is it in alignment with you? One of the things that I realized, you took a week off, right? When I've taken legitimate months off, like, where I may be showing up on Instagram or whatever, but I'm not really doing anything. And the reason why is, one, I'm working with my clients one-on-one, which is what I love. But two, because I have needed over the last couple of years to really have a heart-to-heart. Many, by the way, you will never do more shadow work than when you're an entrepreneur. I will just say that right now. But I have had so many heart-to-hearts with myself that have been, I don't like doing programs. I don't like doing this. I don't like doing the things that I was taught that I needed to do in order to be able to have this thing that I love to do. And I'm like, no, I want heart to heart. I want, like, loving on each other. I want face to face, like, all these things. And that means going back to the drawing board and doing things that will scare you because you've never even thought of them. And so that brings me to my next stage. So I'm sure you see this with your clients a lot, when it comes to creating that thing that is so uniquely you, right? What is the biggest sticking point for people, and how do you help them move through so that there is this freedom for them to take up space and get expansive with it?
Yes, I'm all about the expansion. And I love using that word too, because that's literally what you're doing. When you think about, I always tell my clients, think about a balloon, right? As you're blowing more air into it, it's going to expand, it's going to expand, it's going to get bigger. And with that comes sometimes that weight. So there's good expansion, it's amazing, but it's also like, to whom much is given, much is required. There's also like that other side of it where it's like, oh, more responsibility, more stress. How do I approach this? You have to approach it in a way that feels aligned. And if that's not at the forefront, it's everything else will just sort of fall apart. And it'll feel like it exploded in your face almost, but it's actually beautiful when you can do things in a way that feels aligned. Like, for example, you said you like one-to-ones. I love one-to-ones. I left the group coaching model and went right back to my one-to-ones because I'm like, oh, that feels more heart-centered to me. Me being able to connect one-to-one with someone and have those private, personal conversations, because I don't necessarily always promote this, and sometimes I do, but that inner work, that healing, that's a very personal journey with someone. So I'm always asking my clients, well, where is it coming? What's coming up for you here? And I said, where else has that shown up in your life? So you can ask yourself that question as well. Is this a pattern in my life where I felt unworthy? Like, one of my clients just shared that her father wasn't around, abandoned her, kept promising they would be there. I'll be there. I'll show up. I got you. And she just kept getting disappointed, let down. That wound kept coming back, those feelings of unworthiness. So as she's about to show up for this launch, I was like, let's hold off on the launch. And she's like, are you sure? I think we should launch. I'm like, no, there's no way you should launch. We have to get to these feelings of unworthiness first. Where's that coming from? And then what is it that you're going to do to sit with that and hold space for yourself? Hold space for that little you, that version of you that's still there, because we don't understand. Our inner child just follows us. It's like right into adulthood. Little Lindsay was looking back on memories and taking that when it was time to launch something or time to get excited about announcing something, I'm scared. All of a sudden I'm afraid because I said, oh, fear of rejection, abandonment, etc. All those things start coming to the surface. And you're right, no one will do more shadow work probably than a business owner, because entrepreneurship is one of those things where it's very unpredictable. There are always unforeseen circumstances. And when you're raised to just, oh, go to school, go to college, and you have a certain upbringing, like my mom was work very hard. How many hours you have in a day? You got 12 hours, get things done. She was very hustle minded, that militant energy. So I was like, okay, this is very masculine. I was always operating in the masculine, and I had to take it back. As I started healing and unpacking, I said, wow, I don't cry enough. I'm emotionally detached from myself. So, what is my real identity? And identity healing is big because as you start to really see, and people call it an identity crisis, it really is, because you're not really connected fully with yourself. So, before I tell them about creating, how are we going to create your extraordinary approach, I like to ask a lot of questions to get a feel for, why did you even start your business in the first place? Why? Well, who did you want to help? Why did you even want to create? And they get so excited. It lights them up. Go back to that. Even if you have to record your voice and your voice memos on your phone, you can do this by yourself. Sit the phone down, hit record, don't look at it for a minute, and just think, why did I start my business? Pretend it's a podcast interview. Well, I started because of this. This is who I really wanted to help. When your face lights up like that and that gets you excited, well, that's the direction you're going to start going in with your mission, your vision, your values, the things that really mean the world to you. What do you stand for? What do you stand against? Make that very, very clear. And as you start to see which direction you want to go in, you're like, okay, I think I can create an extraordinary approach just based on my unique framework, based on my unique personality and identity, how I choose to communicate. I'm going to attract my people. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful place to be in. But if you don't hold space for yourself, none of that you can't even skip steps. That's what I tell people. Don't skip the steps. Screw the launch. Maybe you need to hold off for a minute and lean into how you feel for a moment here. Don't ignore yourself, because the more you neglect yourself, the more you ignore yourself, the more you abandon those feelings and say, well, wait, I just got to push on forward. Which is why I get very annoyed by some of these motivational speakers telling you, just keep working and work hard and grind and hustle and make it happen. I'm like, ooh, that is so out of alignment with me. It's really ignoring yourself. And then guess what? Now you're doing all these launches. You're exhausted. You want to quit because you're tired. I like doing soft launches. So it's like, I get away from, I posted, okay, I spoke with some people, cool, I'm off. I'm off for the rest of the day because I'm trusting the process. I know it'll work for me. I don't have to make it work. It's all working together for me. It's all working out for me. One of the affirmations I started really adopting was the one that says, I'm always at the right place at the right time. And so, in the words of one of my clients, Winnie, she said, what is for me cannot miss me. Just remember that. Don't feel like you had a missed opportunity because, oh no, that person didn't want to sign up with me. They hopped on the discovery call. They said no. Oh no, it has nothing to do with you. That person wasn't ready. They weren't ready for your greatness right now. They got to go somewhere else where they feel aligned. And do you really want to work with someone who's out of alignment? We need to stop begging and convincing and persuading people that we are the GOAT in our space. We already know we're amazing. We are the greatest in our space at holding space for other people and really helping them to heal, especially with pure intentions. When you check your intentions and you're like, no, I really do have a heart to serve. All of that it's going to shine through. It's going to shine through. Everyone's intentions come to the surface eventually. Even the people who you might admire, look up. No, look up to you. People have asked me, who do you look up to? Who are me? I look up to me. Okay? Me. Because I know I'm doing big things. And I even look up to me 5 years from now and 10 years, because I know she's going to be doing all types of other stuff. But I look up to me now because I'm proud of my journey and where I've come from. And I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness. I remember I used to walk into rooms and feel like I was not supposed to be here. Now I feel like I belong. This is where I am. And that takes some time to get to that place. But give yourself time. Don't rush that process of feeling uncomfortable, like you were saying before. And guess what? Whatever makes you extraordinary, and you're like, well, I think very differently on this. Good. That's a sign of you taking your extraordinary way, your unique way, and highlighting that. That's why I tell people, highlight that. What makes you so different and makes you feel like, well, I don't agree with that, even though everybody feels that, go in that direction then. Because while it's going to ruffle feathers, and you will, trust and believe you will, at the end of the day, that's their opinion. Let them have their opinion, but you're going to do what you need to do for you. So that's how you create that without compromise. And you can do it with so much conviction because you really believe in it. And if you would do it for free, because I love it that much that I would do this for free. Like, you have to really love it. If you feel like you're forcing it, it might not be in alignment with you, and say, well, what am I really passionate about? Has that changed? Has that shifted? I've pivoted so much. It's okay to pivot. Don't feel stuck like, well, I said I was going to do this and I presented this person. You don't have to present that anymore. Let that go. Drop all of that. No facades. This is just you, face to face. This is the direction I'm going in. If you're still rocking with me, cool. If you're not, peace. That's the type of energy and time I'm on. So if I want to make another pivot in my business, if someone doesn't support that, that's fine. You've got to go in the direction that feels aligned at the end of the day. I know I rambled on, but I just had to.
No. I love this. I can let you go all day on this because this is like so good. I worry that my ADHD brain is going to forget all the things that I want to bring up as I'm listening to you. No, but I love that. And here's the thing is like, it's what I was saying earlier. If you really think that you are going to be the same person today than you were yesterday, then you haven't quite understood everything, including universe, like, grass, trees, every cellular structures, like everything is always renewing. And there is this cycle. That's why there is that divinity, that sacredness to the divine feminine that touches into the cycles of death and rebirth and birth, because everything is doing those things all of the time, whether we see it or not. And that's the thing is when we have these identifiers, these qualifiers, especially as business owners, like I said, yes, your business is a part of your soul. It's a part of your heart. It's this dream. It's you, it's little you sitting on a tree wishing on a star. That, however, is not the entirety of you. And there doesn't need to be this rigidity where there is only one way, one path, one moment, one thing that you can be. Like, I'll use myself as an example. I started as a yoga teacher, added nutrition to that, decided everyone was giving me their hearts anyway. So I was like, I will be the life coach. And then I was like, but I'm not really coaching, because what I'm actually doing is guiding, and I'm walking side by side. I'm a mentor. So therefore, this is the word that I use to describe myself. And then who knows, tomorrow I may wake up and be like, nah, I want to call myself something else. But it isn't even about that. It's not the words. It's not the elevator pitches. It's not the things by which we think we have to define ourselves, because those are attached to our perception of, this is how I prove to you that I am worth it. Take all of those away. Take all of them away and just know yourself as inherently worthy, exactly as you are in this moment, without having to change a single iota. When I say that, I think sometimes people think that I'm saying, oh, it doesn't matter if you have flaws, or it doesn't matter if you've a selfish streak in you, or if you like have a temper, don't fix that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that those parts of you are valid and they're beautiful, and they get to have a voice that you can listen to, so that you can then grow with them. Grow with who you are, grow with your business, evolve, explore, listen to this life pattern, because it gives you so many different opportunities. And you start here and you end there, and that's okay. And you're not going to be for everybody. And not everybody gets to walk with you all the time. And people don't owe you things. Here's one of the hardest pills to swallow as entrepreneurs, especially those of us who are in like heart to heart spaces. People don't owe you something. You may have come in and helped them change their entire lives, and they don't owe you a thing. They don't owe you a testimonial. They don't owe you a hug. They don't owe you a thank you. They don't owe you a single thing. The thing is, we start believing that they do. And then if something happens, we freak out. I don't have a single testimonial for every single client I have ever worked with. I don't. Because I ask, it's an invitation. If you want to give it, great. If you don't, great. Some people prefer anonymity. I'm okay with that. But I'm not attaching that. They don't owe me. And it's the same for you, like as a business owner, as a human being in general, as a matter of fact, people don't owe you anything. And neither do you, by the way. This is like one of those things, mind you, that there's a lot of nuance in this conversation. And I always have to preface this here because I know people get like really ruffly about this. And they're like, this is pseudo psychology. I'm like, no, hold on a second. I'm being very clear that we only have a few minutes in this conversation. And this is a very nuanced topic. However, it is important because a lot of those of us who have heart centered, soul led businesses, we land in that realm of people pleasing because we really do think that we owe something. Oh, I owe this person an explanation because they felt wrong. And now I feel bad. And now, and then before you know it, you start bending backwards and contorting yourself and walking on eggshells. And listen, take it from someone who spent a lot of time in her life walking on eggshells and feeling like she needed to bend over backwards for everybody. It is not gonna do what you want it to do. As a matter of fact, that's a surefire way to forget who you are. That's a surefire way to feel like you don't have an identity anymore. It's a surefire way to break trust with self because yourself has to be able to trust you in order to take these big steps. Everything that Lindsay just described, everything that you just talked about, this is has to come from a place of self-trust. I have to be willing to, not willing, I have to hold the capacity to hold safe space for myself in trust to know I'm going to show up tomorrow. And if it gets tough, I'm going to hold myself. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to look bigger. I'm going to look deeper. I'm going to ask for help where I need it. And I'm going to keep moving. But you have to trust yourself in order to do that. If you do not trust yourself, how? Because it's like that example of your client. I will actually say, like, dude, me too. Like, my dad was that person. He never showed up. So how could I even have trust there when that wasn't established? Imagine how that goes internal. It's harsh when it comes from the outside. It's even worse when it comes from the inside. If I don't trust that I got me, that I am going to pour back into me, that I will love me, that I will sit through the hard stuff, that I will cry when I need to, that I will express when I need to, whatever it is, that if I don't trust that, it's about to get really tough because what I'm going to do is I am going to put those people on those pedestals. And then I'm going to bend over backwards for them. And then I'm going to give them all my power. And for me, that's another space where personal sovereignty is so important. We talk about personal accountability. We talk about that mindful, active, proactive living. This is what it is. And as a leader, if you don't ground that, it is going to be a lot easier to just get bulldozed by all of the information out there, by the need. Another thing that you touched on briefly was this you didn't say it quite like this, but this idea of things taking time. Like if I'm only looking for the expediency, if I'm only looking for the things that are going to be fast and that are going to be easy and simple, then it's going to be a really difficult road. And another thing that you brought up, which is really cool, and if we can aggrandize it a little bit, is remember your little you. And remember, like little you and medium you and big you, like all the yous that have ever existed still exist in this moment. From when you were 0 to when you are now. Every single one of those yous still exists. And every single one of those yous has a story to tell because maybe you in kindergarten got bullied, or maybe you in high school were never getting a seat at the table. It was funny because I was actually re-listening to the episode that I did with one of my best friends, Emily, about friendship, and thinking about, I actually think I need to get another conversation in here about that because it's just so broad, right? One of the reasons why we feel like we can't connect is because we don't think that we have a seat at the table. We just automatically, a lot of us automatically go in there thinking, ooh, I'm not going to fit in. They're too cool for me. It's like, and it's the same with your clients and your clientele. If you're sitting here in your business thinking, no one's going to see this, no one's going to get it, everyone is going to think it's too much or it's too little or it's too, then you're going to keep getting in that space. And that's where I think sometimes people get frustrated when they hear business coaches or self-empowerment coaches say it's about an energetic thing. It's not that we're, at least myself, some people really are being dismissive, but at least, and you're not doing this either, and I know this for a fact, but like we are not saying this, we're not being dismissive of something, is that what we're trying to say is when you're not in alignment with something, it's not going to mesh. You can't force it. That was the last thing that I wanted to touch on, that you brought up, that is like you cannot force something into place. You just can't. And this idea that we have to make it work because the only way that's gonna, no man, like no, like it's gotta be its own thing. It's gotta feel good to you. I actually listened to an interview with Kevin Smith recently where he was saying, man, it he did not say this was easy. He said, I just did what I wanted to do at the end of the day, and he busted his ass to do that. And that's what it is do what you like. This version of you today might want to sell cookies for a living. The version of you tomorrow might decide that no, actually she wants to write a book. Whatever. All of those versions of you have a space, and they're worthy and deserving of that. So, oh my goodness. Okay, so Lindsay, any finishing touches here before like final questions? Any like other things that you want to bring up before we get into the little final details? Oh, I can't believe it's almost time.
I know it flew by. I love everything that you said, and I just want anyone who's listening to know that when you think only in the practical and not in the spiritual, like that's where everything kind of screws up, because sometimes you're just thinking about it. I'm not saying not to have contracts, not to be organized, not to be clear on your onboarding process and what you want that to look like. But you can romanticize it. I love that you use that word. You can have fun with it and enjoy it and make this more fun for you. And the parts that don't feel fun, well, why don't they feel fun to you? Maybe get rid of that part. Maybe I'll take that part out. My application, the way that I started doing things, approaching things, like someone said, oh, you got to do a lot of pain point marketing and stabbing people in the back. And like, I was like, ew, like that doesn't feel good to me. I don't want to call someone out. As a leader, I like to go first. I like to call out my pain points, my problems. How about I call out my issues and things that I've been through, because we all connect through stories and no one's perfect. No one's had a beautiful journey that's just been so amazing. I was that little girl who was the introvert in the cafeteria at age 13 who didn't want to go in the cafeteria with all the cool kids or whatever, So I relate to that so much. And I was running around, just me and the two little friends that I had, avoiding going in the cafeteria. And then we got in trouble because we eventually got caught. But every day I just was like, I don't want to eat with these people. I don't want to sit with it. I don't want to be seen. Are you still hiding? Are you afraid to be seen? That's the thing, is like, sit with that. Am I afraid to be seen? And when I am showing up, do I have this persona that I think will be accepted, or am I showing up fully as me and just flowing? I've been having so much fun, not scripting a bunch of reels, or I just flow. I pick up the camera. I'm like, FaceTime with my friends. Let's go. Have fun. You don't have to do it a certain way to be seen as I'm more professional or code switch, and let all that go. Let that go. Let it go. That's all. Be like Elsa, let it go. That's all you can do. And I'm proud of anyone who is trying to go after it's hard. It's not easy to say, I'm going in a different path and direction. My family might not get it. Your friends might not get it. People around you might not get it. It's okay. It's your unique journey. So just remember that. That's all I really want to remind people. Remember, you have your own unique journey, and it's not going to look like everybody else's.
No. And I think there's something so beautiful about that too, because at the end of the day, this generation, to me, these generations, really, we are the cycle breakers. And that's no easy feat. Like, we are out here literally deprogramming and uprooting and asking. I mean, think about the beauty of all of these entrepreneurs sitting here and self-seducing, getting to know each other. So, like romancing themselves. Like, when was the last generation that actually did self-introspection at the level that we do it? Sometimes we overdo it, I'm not gonna lie. But like, when was the last time,
Yeah, I agree. We're the curse breakers. We get to change things and make a shift so that future generations after us, it can get a little bit easier for them to embrace themselves more. So many people are hiding. So I love what you said. And I'm so grateful, so glad I got to have this conversation with you.
Oh my gosh, me too. I actually could probably keep going for hours. So I'm gonna have to have you come back to the podcast, but we'll definitely be together on our live soon. But so okay, finishing touches before I ask you like my final questions and then I let you go is I was going to say something. You touched on this and I love this. And now it's of course now it's escaping, but it basically the importance of not fearing being perceived because a lot of us did have to hide for many reasons, like just have to hide, and it can get very comfortable to not be perceived. So that's the last thing I wanted to touch on is kind of to amplify this conversation. If that is something that you struggle with, start perceiving yourself first and then get very comfortable being very uncomfortable with allowing other people to perceive you because there's nothing wrong with that. And at the end of the day, like you said as well, is it's not about you. This is something that I tell my clients day in and day out, and I love that this is something that we can all talk about. Is it's not about you, man. Like it's literally not about you. Why? Because we are the main character in all of our own stories. So I promise you that person doesn't spend 24 hours thinking about you the way that you think about you. You're the one in your world. They don't perceive you that way. It's not about you when they're having that conversation with you and you get that rejection for like, no, I don't really want to work with you. Girl, it's not about you. It's about their own systems, about what's going on in their reality, about what's going on in their wallet. I mean, and all of these are valid, by the way. None of them are invalid. It's just that it doesn't have to do, it's not a judgment of how crappy you are or how little you are bringing into this world or how insufficient you are. It's not about that. It's about that person's lived reality. And it's okay. And you are going, don't sweat it. I always say, spend time at luxury stores because you'll get it. Like, if you actually walk into YSL, which is my favorite, they're not gonna dog you. They're not gonna be like, "Please buy these shoes. Please, like, take them." They're gonna be like, What are you looking for? Cool, you're into that? Okay, you want cool, just come get me if you're ready. If you have questions, let me know." And I love that. That's kind of why I show up the way that I do on social media sometimes too, sometimes to my detriment, by the way, and I will say this, like, sometimes I do lack the structure of saying like, oh, maybe I should have like a timing in which I actually share with things because sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and be like, yeah, I'm doing this thing. It's $111 if you want to show up. If not, I'm cool with that. And then that's how I do. But I do it because it's an energetic thing. It's a feel. If I'm like in love with something, if it's a frequency that's only going to be here for a little bit, then it is going to be a limited thing. And that is then it's gone, and I'm on to the next thing because that is just the way that it is. So don't be afraid to do that for yourself. And then okay, what is your advice for people on how to get really deeply cemented into their own personal sovereignty?
Yeah, I think spending more time with yourself, like for me, I'm a Pisces, so I'm a water sign. I love swimming. So when I started getting in the water, I enjoyed it more. And when I would go walk by the water, be in nature, just spend more time alone by myself. I think that's what it was for me that helped me to see my higher self and really see myself for the first time like, oh, okay, maybe I don't like these hardcore seeing what do I like, what do I dislike? Am I just doing this because I want to socialize? Am I doing this to be accepted? So come back to yourself and say, let me try things that I actually enjoy. And as you come back to those moments, that's when you get the ideas flowing. That's when you're back in alignment. Whenever you connect with yourself on that deeper level, when you sit with yourself, like we talked about here, that seems to be sitting with yourself because really you should hold space for yourself. But when you're sitting there, what are the thoughts that come up as you're connecting more? It's like, what do I really enjoy? What have I always wanted to do but didn't think that I could do? But I was like, oh, this is so fun. Like indoor rock climbing. I'm not ready to go on no mountains yet, but I said I want to try more things to see what I really like because I never had the opportunity to explore these things when I was growing up. I was so used to structure and doing a bunch of work that I lost a little bit of, well, what do you actually enjoy? And do you know if you enjoy these things? So go out there and do some things, explore. If it's staying inside and saying, well, let me take a dance class. I need to like awaken myself. How can I embody that child who wants to be free? That's a huge part of it for me, was like, play more, have more fun. Do you want a coloring book? Go get one. Like, do something that's outside of the box, or that doesn't necessarily align with most business. What did you used to do when you were a kid? What did you want to do that you never got the opportunity to do? Me, I want to go skydiving one day. I know it sounds crazy, but I was like, I like that adrenaline. I want to try it. Let's do it. It's
I will
it's
go
for
with you.
me
I love
connecting
it.
back to yourself. And if you don't like that, you don't have to do that either. So yeah, and I went zip lining. I loved zip lining, and I was like, I got to do this again. I did it a second time. Equally fell in love with it. So you find what you like, what lights you up, what excites you, and as you're exploring and you're on this self discovery and exploration path, you're also going and you just find yourself. It takes time to find you. It takes time. If something makes you uncomfortable, speak up. I know that's the hardest thing to do. That's one of the things we've been told. Oh, just let it go. But sometimes that's the opportunity we have to share with someone. Yeah, see you and hear you.
Whew. Okay. Okay, I'm recording. So let's just try to make it through. Okay, so what I'll do is okay. So Lindsay, again, thank you. This has been a great conversation. Even if, the technology gods haven't been on our side today, but I would love for you to just share a little bit more about where people can find you, how they can work with you. And then I will let you go for the day.
Yes. So for those of you who want to work with me, I'm accepting one-to-one clients, which has been amazing. As we spoke about, going back to my one-on-ones has been incredible. It's been a beautiful year of doing that, and it's where I thrive. And so if you want more one-to-one support in a private setting where, you can hold space, and again, there's no pressure for you to have to provide a video review. Some of my clients remain anonymous. I totally 100% respect people on that. And if you want to create content with more intention, and messaging with more intention, to a space where you feel good about yourself and how you do it. I love, and I'm super creative about it, but I love, love, love helping people find their extraordinary approach and getting it trademarked, and just becoming known for that thing that it is that you really want to do. And that could change over time, which is amazing. But in your business, you're like, I know I'm amazing. I know I have this phenomenal stuff on the inside of me. But sometimes it's just like, how do I come up with, what is the wording? What is it, the verbiage I really want to use? All those beautiful things about you, and really highlight your core values throughout the process, because all of our values are very different. What means something to one doesn't mean something to all. So that's why I can't stand when people say create valuable content. Well, valuable is in the eye of the beholder, and in the eye of the person who believes that that's valuable. It is valuable what you're doing. And I want you to know your business is amazing. Your energy is sacred. So if something doesn't feel right or aligned, don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't do it. For me, I share a little bit more in my free 20-minute masterclass. So if you want to get a feel a little bit of my style and how I share, it's the best way to opt in, to see like, oh, okay, this is a little sample of who she is and how she does things. I like giving people a little free sample so they can walk away being like, oh, okay, I like her vibe, or maybe this isn't for me. So definitely check it out.
Amazing. I love it. Well, thank you again so much, Lindsay. Again, I'm sorry we had to deal with the trouble of the technology, but I so appreciate you being here. I'll definitely have to ask you back. And everybody who's listening or watching on YouTube, please go ahead and follow her. All her details are going to be on the descriptions. And then also don't forget to join us soon on Instagram Lives. So the day that this episode airs, right? That Friday of the week that this episode airs, you can find us live on Instagram. More details on that anyway in the comments. But thank you so much again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate you.